You know him as Jack Bauer, the hero who always saves the day. But this week, Kiefer Sutherland found himself in a very different kind of drama, a real-life one. And this drama is not some minor incident. He's facing serious felony charges. So what's the charge? Felony criminal threats. And yeah, that's a seriously big deal, all coming from a late-night run-in in Hollywood. For an actor who literally built a career playing the guy who always gets out of a tight spot, this time the stakes are very, very real. Alright, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll cover the arrest itself. Then we'll dig into what actually happened during that altercation. We're going to explain what these felony charges really mean, take a look back at Sutherland's past run-ins with the law, and then wrap it up by asking the question, what on earth happens now? Okay, so we're talking about Kiefer Sutherland, the 59-year-old Emmy and Golden Globe winning actor. He was taken into custody by the LAPD. Here are the basics: the who, what, where, when. The incident went down on January 12th, right at that famous intersection of Sunset and Fairfax in LA. And according to the police, it's a two-part allegation. First, a physical assault, and second, criminal threats made against a rideshare driver. So you're probably wondering, how does a simple rideshare pickup escalate into a felony arrest? Well, if you look at the timeline of that night, it reveals a pretty fast-moving and honestly dramatic chain of events. It all kicked off around midnight. Just 4 hours later, boom, Sutherland is being booked into jail by the LAPD. And then by 11 in the morning, that's just 7 hours after that, he's already out on bond. It was an absolute whirlwind of a night, and you can bet this thing is far from over. And this isn't just speculation. This is coming straight from the LAPD. Officer Kevin Terzis confirmed that Sutherland is accused of both physically assaulting the driver and making criminal threats. And that second part, the criminal threats, that's the real pain point. That's the basis for this very serious felony charge. Now, there is one really important detail here. Reports say that the driver, thankfully, didn't need any medical treatment. And while that is definitely good news, it doesn't really change the severity of the charges Sutherland is up against. So let's talk about these charges. What exactly does a felony criminal threat charge even mean? Well, it's a whole lot more serious than a misdemeanor, and it puts Sutherland in some pretty deep legal trouble. So under California law, a criminal threat isn't just, saying something mean. It's about communicating a threat of serious harm or even death in a way that makes the person on the receiving end genuinely and reasonably fear for their safety. So the whole case hinges on the impact of those words on the victim. And if he's convicted, what's he looking at? Potentially up to 3 years in a California state prison. I mean, that number alone tells you just how serious this is. Now, to get out of jail, Sutherland had to post a $50,000 bond. That's pretty standard procedure, but it's also just the first of what's probably going to be a lot of legal and financial hurdles for him. So what's next in the playbook here? Well, his first court date is set for February 2nd. The LAPD's investigation is still very much ongoing, and maybe most tellingly, there has been absolute radio silence from Sutherland's team. Not a word. This actually isn't the first time Sutherland has had issues with the law. To really get the full picture of what's happening now, you kind of have to look at the two sides of his public life, the superstar actor and the man who has, publicly struggled with his demons. I mean, on one side, you've got this icon, right? Jack Bauer from 24, an Emmy winner, the star of absolute classics like Stand By Me and A Few Good Men. But then on the other side, there's a pretty long history of alcohol-related legal troubles. We're talking multiple DUI arrests and even a jail sentence back in 2007. And it's that history that could really influence how everyone from the public to the legal system sees this brand new incident. And there's another layer to this, a really personal one. This arrest happened just a few months after his father, the legendary actor Donald Sutherland, passed away. Now, of course, we can't know for sure, but it's really hard not to wonder if this incredibly recent personal tragedy might have played a role in what happened that night. So, as this whole thing heads toward court, we're left with way more questions than answers. This story is really just getting started, and a lot of the key details are still totally up in the air. So what really happened in that car? Was this just a huge misunderstanding that got out of hand? Was it a moment of pure, uncontrolled anger? Or was it something more? Right now, those are the questions right at the heart of this entire case. Yeah, we're all still waiting for answers. What was the spark that set off the whole argument? Is Sutherland's team ever going to break their silence? While Sutherland hasn't publicly addressed the incident, people familiar with the situation have shared what they say really happened that night. According to someone close to the investigation, Sutherland asked the driver multiple times, at least 3 by their count, to simply pull over and let him out of the vehicle. Each time, the driver reportedly refused. Those familiar with the case also point to a possible communication breakdown. The driver, who apparently speaks limited English and needed a translator when giving his statement to police, may have struggled to understand what Sutherland was asking for. This language gap, sources suggest, could have sparked the initial tension and made things worse as the situation unfolded. Although the LAPD ultimately booked Sutherland on felony criminal threats charges and noted a physical assault, people in the actors' circle tell a different story. They insist the confrontation was mostly words, heated ones perhaps, but that it only escalated after the driver wouldn't let Sutherland simply end the ride and get out. What's going to happen at that February 2nd court date? And maybe the biggest question for his fans, what does this do to his career in the long run? Right now, it's anyone's guess. So this story is still being written. Kiefer Sutherland has built an incredible career playing characters who beat impossible odds. But this time it's not a script, it's real life. And the real question is whether he can navigate this personal crisis and what the future really holds for one of Hollywood's most enduring and, let's be honest, complicated stars. That's the story for today. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this in the comments below. Keep your eyes open. This is the Vanguard Watch. Catch you in the next one.